Everyone thinks Webvan failed because online grocery delivery was a bad idea. They're wrong. Webvan failed because it was the best idea anyone had ever had, 15 years too early. This company raised nearly $800 million, hired a CEO who walked away from a $4 million salary, and placed a $1 billion order with Bechtel to build automated warehouses across America. Then it vanished in under 2 years. But the real question isn't why Webvan died. The real question is why everything they predicted came true, and why someone else got to collect the reward. Louis Borders already knew what disruption looked like. He had co-founded the Borders bookstore chain in 1971, building it into a nationwide empire. By 1996, he was watching the internet reshape everything, and he had a vision that most people laughed at. Americans would order their groceries online and have them delivered to their front door within 30 minutes. Not tomorrow. Not next week. 30 minutes. He didn't want to partner with existing supermarkets. He wanted to build the most advanced automated fulfillment network the world had ever seen. And his reputation opened every door in Silicon Valley. To run this operation, Borders recruited George Shaheen, the head of Andersen Consulting, now known as Accenture. Shaheen walked away from a $4 million a year salary to become Webvan's CEO. Wall Street treated the hire like a coronation, a titan of management consulting, leading the future of grocery delivery. One detail nobody seemed to care about: Shaheen had never spent a single day working in the grocery industry. Neither had any other Webvan executive. Not one of their major investors had ever managed a supermarket. The money arrived like a flood. Sequoia Capital and Benchmark Capital wrote early checks. Softbank poured in $160 million. Goldman Sachs added $50 million. Yahoo and E-Trade each contributed $10 million. Before Webvan had delivered a single grocery order to a paying customer, venture capitalists had invested over $396 million. $396 million for a company that existed mostly as a promise. The dot-com fever had turned Silicon Valley into a casino, and Webvan was the hottest table in the room. Webvan placed a $1 billion order with Bechtel, one of the largest engineering firms on the planet. The contract called for a nationwide network of automated warehouses, each one costing $35 million. 330,000 square feet of conveyor belts, robotic sorting arms, and industrial refrigeration. And alongside the warehouses came a fleet of bright, branded delivery trucks. Webvan wasn't testing a concept. They were building an empire for a customer base that didn't exist yet. November 1999. The dot-com bubble reached its absolute peak, and Webvan rode the wave straight to Wall Street. The IPO raised $375 million. On its first day of trading, the stock closed 65% above the offering price. Investors valued this grocery delivery startup at $4.8 billion. $4.8 billion for a company that, at the time of its public offering, had reported total cumulative revenue of just $395,000. Against cumulative losses of more than $50 million. A company worth less than $400,000 in actual sales was now valued higher than most supermarket chains in America. And instead of pausing to prove the model worked, Webvan accelerated. Under relentless pressure from investors who demanded first-mover advantage, they expanded to 10 cities before proving the business model worked in even one. Each city required another $35 million warehouse, another fleet of trucks, another army of delivery drivers. The logic was intoxicating and fatal. Get big or get buried. The numbers from those cities arrived like a diagnosis. At its peak in the year 2000, Webvan reported $178 million in revenue. Impressive until you saw the expense line, $525 million. For every $100 of groceries Webvan sold, they spent $143 getting them to the customer's door. Every delivery, every order, every truck rolling out of those gleaming warehouses was a net loss. The automated conveyor belts were running perfectly. They were just moving groceries that almost nobody had ordered. a rational company would have pulled back, cut cities, closed warehouses, focused on making even one market profitable. Webvan did the opposite. In the year 2000, they acquired HomeGrocer, another online grocery delivery company that was also burning through cash, for $1.2 billion in stock. Two sinking ships, lashed together, heading for the same iceberg. The merger added more warehouses, more trucks, more delivery drivers, and an even faster burn rate to a company that had never turned a profit. Then the Nasdaq crashed. The dot-com bubble that had inflated every internet startup into a billion-dollar fantasy finally popped. Investor confidence vanished overnight. Webvan's stock, which had once soared to $34 a share, giving the company a valuation north of $10 billion, began a death spiral toward zero. The venture capital spigot shut off. No more lifelines. No more second chances. Webvan was burning millions every single week, with no path to profitability and no one left willing to write another check. April 2001. With the walls closing in, George Shaheen, the man who had abandoned a $4 million salary to chase the grocery delivery dream, resigned as CEO. And as he walked out the door, he triggered a clause buried in his contract. Webvan would owe him $375,000 a year, $31,250 every single month. For life. A company that couldn't afford to keep the lights on in its warehouses was now contractually obligated to pay its departing CEO forever. July 9, 2001. Webvan shut down entirely. Filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy. 2,000 employees walked out of those gleaming automated warehouses for the last time in a single day. At its peak, 3,500 people had worked there. Delivery drivers who had held stock options, shares once worth small fortunes, watched those options become worthless paper. Every last item of non-perishable food was loaded onto trucks and donated to local food banks. Over $800 million in investor money, gone. The warehouses fell silent. While Webvan collapsed, a smaller company called Peapod quietly survived. Peapod had the exact same idea, deliver groceries to people's homes through the internet. But Peapod made one radically different choice. Instead of building $35 million automated warehouses from scratch, they partnered with existing supermarkets and used infrastructure that already existed. Peapod spent a fraction of what Webvan burned. Same dream, same decade, completely different approach. One became the biggest flameout of the dot-com era. The other is still delivering groceries today. Today, Instacart is valued at roughly $10 billion. Amazon Fresh delivers to millions of homes. Walmart Plus reaches every corner of the country. Online grocery delivery isn't a fantasy anymore. It's a massive, multi-billion-dollar industry. And here is the bitter irony. Everything Webvan believed turned out to be true. Every prediction they made about consumer behavior came to pass. The infrastructure they tried to build from scratch, smartphones, broadband internet, logistics software, simply hadn't been invented yet. Webvan didn't fail because they were wrong. They failed because they were 15 years too early. Louis Borders saw exactly where the world was heading. He saw that Americans would choose convenience over tradition, that technology would reshape how people bought food, that the supermarket as we knew it was already obsolete. He was right about all of it, but he built billion-dollar warehouses for customers who were still waiting for dial-up modems to connect. He bought fleets of trucks for a market that wouldn't mature for another decade. Webvan is the most expensive correct prediction in business history, a monument to being right at exactly the wrong time. Every time you tap a screen and groceries appear at your door, somewhere in that transaction lives the ghost of Webvan. A billion-dollar lesson that being right isn't enough. Timing is everything. If the story surprised you, subscribe to Rise and Ruin for more stories of empires that rose, fell, and changed the world anyway. And leave a comment, what company today do you think is building too fast for a world that isn't ready?